Aftermath, a Sunderside's fanfiction reading, Chapter 2. As Adults. When Patton arrived back in his room in the mindscape, he took in a deep, calming breath. Today had been a hard day, and he had a lot of apologizing to do. Janice had helped him look at his life in a new light, one he didn't want to acknowledge until now. First stop, Roman. Patton went to work on a good cup of hot cocoa to bring along as a sign of goodwill. Roman had been trying so hard lately, trying to support Patton in his decisions, trying to share center stage more with the others, trying to be more open about his feelings. And when Roman needed him in his corner, Patton had managed to make him feel betrayed. It hadn't been intentional. Even Janice had been surprised at that turn of events. Patton clenched his teeth as he thought back to Roman's face when he left. He'd failed him. Roman had clearly been hurting for a while, and Patton had been too busy with his own issues to pay attention. Self-care meant nurturing every aspect of yourself. This included the parts you thought were fine. With a cute kitten cup of hot cocoa that said, "You are meowvelous," in hand, he walked over to Roman's door. Cheer Roman up, rebuild his confidence, and get him to give Janice another chance. He could do that. Piece of cake. He gently knocked on the door and cleared his throat. "Roman? You in there, sport? I brought hot cocoa," he asked gently. It was quiet for a bit, and right when Patton thought he should knock again, he heard movement on the other side. The door opened to reveal Virgil? Patton hadn't really seen him since he left for his room when they left the reception. He hadn't expected to see him quite so soon. At the same time, he was surprised the younger side hadn't appeared as soon as the seat showed himself. Patton noticed the headphones hanging around Virgil's neck. Had he been drowning out the discussion on purpose to spare Thomas? Before Patton's thoughts can stray any further, Virgil spoke. "He's taking a nap. Seems really out for the count. I was going to check up on Logan next, but could you do that? You know how emotional roller coaster like today take it out of me. Besides, I think Lou would much rather hear from you anyway. I'm going to nap in here. My room is a bit too much for me right now, you know." Virgil spoke just a little too quick, something Patton probably wouldn't have caught onto if not for everything that had happened today making him stand on high alert. Virgil was trying to get him to leave, though Patton didn't think he was insincere in his concern for Logan. The word in the protective side was clear and genuine. Logan. Gods, he'd have to talk to him as well. He knew this as soon as Logan left, of course, but Patton had tried to view the rest of the day as one task at a time. He was almost relieved to find that both Roman and Virgil were giving him a pass to postpone his full apologies to them by a day. So he chose to go along with the lie for now, in favor of keeping Virgil in the loop. He didn't want the anxious young man to feel blindsided by Janice's presence tomorrow. "Oh, of course, kiddo. You take it easy. I'm going to need to talk to you about something, though." How to say this without making Virgil switch to fight or flight? You left Janice, of all people, in charge of Thomas's post-learning moment aftercare? Yeah, Roman gave me the headlines. Patton's eyes widened. Right, Roman was here. While Patton was making cocoa, Virgil had already been taking care of their friend. And if the look on his face was anything to go by, he didn't like the decision. Virgil sighed and closed his eyes for a moment, most likely to calm down his own anxiety. When he looked back at him, his eyes were determined, but also trusting. "I trust your judgment, Patton, but I don't trust Jan. Not for a second." He stated it so plainly. Patton wanted to say something on the yellow side's behalf, but Virgil raised his hand to stop him. "He'd never hurt Thomas on purpose. I know that. None of us would. Thomas isn't self-destructive by nature. The problem is, I'm not sure if he's ready to see that he can hurt him on accident." It was quiet for a minute. Virgil had no clue how close to home that statement hit. Would Patton lose Virgil's trust once he learned that he too was capable of hurting Thomas? "I think I know what that's like," Patton admitted. Then he took a deep breath. Time to be brave. If Virgil was to realize how much damage Patton had done with his good intentions, then Patton would rather have it be because of him, and not because of anyone else. And if that meant Patton would be someone Virgil now would see as a potential danger to Thomas's health and happiness, then so be it. Virgil deserved an apology as well, even if it hurt to say it. "I'm really sorry, kiddo. I know that I've been the cause of a lot of your pain too." Virgil blinked in confusion as Patton bit his lip and searched for the words to explain. How could he cause his dark son so much pain? "I remember when Thomas was still young and you just started to really manifest. Before we pushed you away as a bad thing. You'd hang on to me and panic whenever I got nervous about Thomas doing a wrong thing, thinking a bad thought. The memory was so bittersweet. The sparkle in Virgil's eyes at the magnificent creations of the king, and later his shy laugh at the antics of the twins, the way he'd listen with rapt attention when Logan explained what caused the loud noise or the creepy shadow, making it a little less scary. The way he nodded along at Patton's words of comfort and love, and his quiet giggles at his silly jokes. But even if Virgil sought comfort and steadiness with Patton back then, it had been him who caused many of his episodes, and creativity who had suited him more than any of them could. If no amount of rationalizing from Logan or encouragements from Patton could convince Virgil that there was no monster in the closet, then the king, or Roman and Remus, could convince him that there was nothing to be afraid of, because they were brave warriors and Virgil was their knight, and together they were stronger than any monster could hope to be. The scary thing became an exciting adventure Thomas could smile about and as he fell asleep. And Patton had ruined that perfect picture, shattered it with his own narrow-mindedness. "I did that to you, because I was too strict, and I was teaching you to think in black and white too. And when we pushed you away, of course you thought that you had to be the bad guy to do your job. I taught you that, and I hate it. I wish I could go back and hug little you and me and say that it's okay. But I can't. I just hope that you'll believe me when I say I'm really sorry, and I'll try to be better. Please forgive me. Please don't push me away. I want to be the person you thought I was back then. I want to deserve the way you used to look at me." A few more moments of silence hung between them, and just when Patton was about to despair, Virgil spoke carefully, choosing each word as if everything depended on it. "Pops, you weren't entirely to blame for me believing I was bad. Janice had just as much to do with that, if not more." Patton felt something twist inside. Another question he'd failed to ask that he really should have before today. "What do you mean, kiddo?" Virgil shifted his weight nervously before shoving his hands deep in his pockets and looking down at his shoes as he recalled times before he was welcomed at the table. "The thing about him is, he deals in extremes. Today you might have seen him in a sincere and nurturing mood, but we have all seen how deceitful and destructive and manipulative he can be," Virgil explained gently. "You saw what that behavior did to Roman, even if he didn't mean to hurt him." Patton felt both pain and comfort at that statement. Pain because his friend had been hurting and he was once more reminded that he'd failed to see that, but comfort because he was just so glad that the friendship these two once shared was getting back to what it once was. It had been something so precious in Patton's eyes when they were young, to see the king pretend to be slain and Virgil frantically imploring him to be better, a wish that was always granted. or Roman nearly being done in by his brother, which encouraged Virgil to be brave and help Roman. Remus had been fine with it. The game was make Virgil not afraid anymore. So if he had to lose 2-on-1 for that to happen, then the green-clad wind would take it. The close bond between creativity and caution had been lost for much too long, but now it was back. Patton forced himself to redirect his attention to Virgil's explanation. One moment he looks at you and sees a friend, a brother, a son. Oh, was that it? Was that why Virgil was a bit shy about being treated like Patton's son all of a sudden? Because Janice, his former parental figure, was back and it brought back bad memories? The next, you are a pawn to be manipulated in any way that suits what he thinks to be the greater good in that moment. And when he speaks, you never know for certain if it's a painful truth you need to hear to become better, stronger, or a hurtful lie to make you suit his needs. Virgil took in a long breath and let it out with a sigh. Patton held back the urge to hug him. Hot cocoa in his hands. Hugging wasn't a good idea. It's a long story, and you should really go get Logan hot cocoa just the way he likes it. He deserves some Patton love as well, Virgil urged with a slightly forced smile. Patton nodded and offered a look of comfort and understanding in return. All right, kiddo. Thanks for being honest with me. I hope you'll tell us all the story later so we can understand. But take your time, he insisted, and then, because he wanted to be clear and honest in his communication with Virgil, and thank you for trying to spare my feelings by not telling me that Roman isn't ready for our talk yet. You two rest up, take care of him for me, and tell him I'm sorry I let him down. Virgil's sheepish look at getting caught in his lie changed to a worried frown as he nodded in confirmation to ensure that he would convey that message to Roman. I'm sure he'd say that you did nothing of the sort. Don't let Janice get into your head too much. Ugly truths and painful lies, Patton. Don't fall for the latter just because he gave you a little of the former. Virgil warned. Patton nodded. Like with Virgil, it would take them some time to figure out how to talk to the new side at their table. But they would manage. Patton was confident in that much. I'll keep that in mind. Good night, then. Thomas should be taking a day or two to relax and take care of himself, so you should get plenty of time to recover, Patton assured Virgil. Night. See you in a minute when something goes wrong anyway. Patton chuckled at Virgil's jab before closing the door. When he emerged from his room for the second time that night, now with a mug that only had a single palm print as decoration for Logan, he spotted a figure at Virgil's door. It was Janice. V? Do you want me to beg? Because I will, he warned, his voice shaky with emotion. He's not in there, Patton offered helpfully, feeling for the other side. He hadn't heard the story yet, but he could gather that Virgil and Janice had been close once. The snake-themed side probably missed his friend. Patton was happy that he tried to make amends right away. Janice looked up in surprise. Oh, Patton, I figured you'd be with Prince Charming, he muttered, as a little uncomfortable now that he was caught in what he thought was a private moment. Me too, but Virgil was looking after him already. I'm on my way to Logan's. Take a rest, Janice. You earned it. Virgil is probably going to stick with Roman as long as he feels he's in danger. It was something they'd noticed about the side. If any of them had a rough day, Virgil tended to hover over them a bit more until he felt certain that whatever had caused them distress had passed. Only exception being if he himself was overwhelmed. Janice looked back at the door, a little dejected. Oh, well, perhaps it's better if he gets used to the idea a bit first, anyway, he mused, not sounding too convinced. I'm sure it'll all pan out. Roman and Virgil had a falling out at least that lasted close to 2 decades, and now they are almost back to old times. Whatever happened between you two, is going to sort itself out as well," Patton assured Janice. The other side nodded and waved him off. "Good luck with Logan," he muttered, still sounding upset about his missed chance to talk to Virgil tonight. Patton almost followed after him, but then decided that this problem was the kind where the best way to help was to stay out of it. Virgil and Janet had to solve their own issues. Now he had a hot beverage to deliver. "Logan?" he asked gently as he knocked on the pristine door into the room. "I know you don't want to talk, and you don't have to, but I thought you might like a hot cocoa anyway." After a few moments he heard the sound of a lock being taken off, and the door opened. "A hot beverage would be pleasing," Logan allowed stiffly as he led Patton into his room. Patton quietly walked into the spotless room. Aside from a few sciencey posters and a lot of bookshelves, the room was very bare bones. Patton sat at the kitchen island, and Logan joined him on the other side, accepting his drink. "Virgil is worried about you. I'm sure he'd like to hear from you that Janice didn't hurt you when you took your place," Patton offered. "I see. I shall talk to him about it later, when we've all gathered our berries." Logan nodded as he took a sip. "This is quite good," he complimented. "Thanks. Logan, I just want to say I'm sorry for skipping your help. The truth is I was panicking and desperately trying to find clear instructions to follow that were impossible to find, and if I listened to you, I might have realized what Janice was trying to teach me sooner. Like how listening to you helped us deal with Remus. I made so many mistakes, Logan. I'm sorry I made you feel inadequate or not respected because of my own insecurities. I've hurt you all so badly. I'm sorry." Logan nodded throughout the whole apology, seemingly more focused on his cup than the words. "I feel like my whole existence I've been half blind, and now I was forced to get a better prescription and see the damage I'd done. And I'm sorry that you were caught in the metaphorical fallout of this whole thing." Logan nodded once again. "I appreciate your clarification on your use of figurative speech. Also, you put effort in this offering." He took another sip as if to stress what he was talking about. "And you were careful to direct your apology mainly at any distress your actions may have caused rather than the guilt you feel. Your apology was sincere, and therefore I accept it." Patton smiled gratefully at Logan. "Thank you, Lo. And if you change your mind and decide that you do want to talk, I'm here, all right? I won't push you away ever again, even if what you have to say makes me feel uncomfortable or scared," he vowed. Logan nodded. Again. "Let's agree that should someone's behavior overwhelm you in any way, you signal me, by taking off your glasses, by example. Even if I were to be the one to make you feel pressured, I will take note of this and attempt to calm the situation down enough for you to focus. Does that sound agreeable?" Patton nodded. "But only if you promise me to tug at your tie 3 times when you feel like you aren't being listened to," Patton insisted. Logan allowed for a small smirk and nodded. Satisfied with his agreement, they both talked about simpler times. Patton asked Logan about his favorite memory of before Remus and Virgil were moved away from them, and Logan recalled when Remus wanted to perform one of the experiments Logan had read about in a kid's science book. Remus had some interesting additions. This had made Logan extremely curious. It was a mess, and Logan hadn't even cared. He didn't have that much fun in ages before or ages to come. Roman and Virgil had performed the original experiment as a control case. They all realized that the results were whatever the twins would imagine it to be, but they had fun pretending they were serious scientists. "Sometimes I wonder," Patton started, as his nostalgia started to become clouded with regret. "Nothing could have been done about the situation, Patton. Sooner or later Virgil and Remus would be found unwelcome by Thomas, and they would have still ended up in the subconscious." Logan sounded so sure that Patton let himself believe it for tonight. Then the scene shifted. "Thomas is getting ready for bed," Logan observed. Before Patton could make the leap Logan alone, he said something quite surprising. "Do you want to keep me company as I supervise the dreams? Roman is most likely not up for it, and I'd much rather Thomas get a restful night." Patton smiled amused and nodded in understanding. "If you let Remus anywhere near the dreams, they would get really weird, even by his standards." "I'd love to." Patton nodded as he let Logan lead him the way to the observatory. As they settled into the comfortable chairs to observe the dreams, they heard a voice drift through the mindscape. "Who's good or bad, who's to say?" And as that song continued, Thomas fell asleep, feeling better than he had in months.